My name is Kate Wisniewski, and I'm here with the Office of Congressman Jim Renacci, here with Pete Manuguerra.
That's good enough.
On August 15th, 2017 in Parma, Ohio, doing the Veterans History Project interview. All right, so where and when were you born?
I was born on December 23rd, 1949 in Sandusky, Ohio.
And who were your parents?
Frank and Marianne.
And what were their occupations, kind of what was growing up like?
Blue collar family. My mother and father worked in a Philco factory in Sandusky. My father ended up dying in 1965 when I was 15 years old. Had a pulmonary embolism after surgery. So, but I had a pretty normal Catholic upbringing with Catholic schools from kindergarten to 8th grade. So.
And did you have any siblings, or were you an only child?
I had two brothers, and then I had a stepbrother later on with my mother remarried in 1970 when I came back from Vietnam. Yeah, so.
Okay. So. And did any of them serve in the military?
I'm the only serving in the military.
Okay. So what was life like, I guess, before you entered the service? Were you going to school?
I was, at the point in time, 1967, I graduated from high school. Went to Ohio State University. Had my student deferment back then because it was before the lottery draft. I didn't do so well my spring quarter. I had a .0375. I just played golf and partied and didn't study very much. So I lost my student deferment, and the little old ladies at the draft board in Sandusky, Ohio knew that right away for some reason, that they reported it, and I got drafted. Got my induction notice in August and had to report to Cleveland for the swearing-in ceremony in October of 1968.
Wow. So, since you were drafted, what branch did you get drafted into?
U.S. Army.
The U.S. Army. And then, what was kind of like the whole beginning part? So, basic training, going through the draft, and all of that.
When I got drafted, I was at the Federal Building in Cleveland, Ohio. They didn't let us, once we took the oath, we weren't allowed to leave the building. They took us in a bus late at night to Cleveland Hopkins Airport, and we got on a plane and flew to Louisville, Kentucky, and got on a bus from Louisville and ended up at Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training at probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We're all kind of like zoned out, being tired and not knowing what's going on, and seeing these footsteps painted on the driveway, and we were all told to get out of the bus, put our feet there, and some drill sergeant came out and started yelling at us. So that was
wow.
Day one.
So what was, I guess, then the rest of basic training like?
Basic training at Fort Knox was literally basic. It's just getting acclimated to being in the military. From the first day of just going and getting your hair cut, buzzed off, getting uniforms, learning how to dress properly, how to set the creases and the cuffs and everything else, and polish shoes, and clean barracks, and running and PT and running and PT, and you're just, so basic training was basic training. Don't remember too many skills I learned in basic training other than being probably in the best shape of my life, and learning how to polish shoes really well, and learning how to polish floors really well. So, and then after that, I had a 2-week break and then went to infantry training at Fort Polk, Louisiana at Tigerland. So.
Okay. So what do you think the hardest part during that beginning training and that kind of experience?
I guess being away from home. I mean, just being away from my normal friends, my normal support system, whether it's my family or my friends, was gone forever.
Yeah.
My new support system was all green.
And were you able to keep in contact with your family and friends at home at all, or?
You know, I think we were allowed to use the phone once a week. You know, this is before cell phones or emails or anything else, because it was 1968. And, you know, I think letters frequented, but, you know, nothing much.
Yeah. Wow. And then, so do you remember, like, I guess during your basic training, do you remember, like, what the food was like, or living in the barracks and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I remember living in the barracks. We had to keep it immaculately clean, and that we had figured out a way to, so we never would scuff the floor in the middle, that we kind of went from bunk to bunk, so we didn't step on the floor. And if you stepped on the floor, you had to wear your stocking feet so you didn't have to rebuff it. The bathrooms in the barracks were lost all sense of modesty, because even the commodes were back to back, or cheek to cheek, cheek to cheek to cheek, no stalls or anything else.
Oh, wow.
And you have to clean them, so it was a very regimented life, which
Okay.
they were trying to break us, and they did.
So then after there, you said you went to another camp. Was that in?
That was in Fort Polk, Louisiana, for my advanced training.
Okay.
So I went to infantry training. I was selected to go to infantry training after basic training. You know, some people became medics, some people went to artillery, some people went to armor. I was a draftee. I knew where I was going. I went to infantry training in Fort Polk, Louisiana.
So what was that experience like compared to your initial?
That was more intense training. You know, I learned to really, you know, fire weapons, take care of my weapons with you know, whether it was the M60 machine gun, M79, M16, 50 caliber, anything with small weapons. It was light weapons infantry training that I was at in Vietnam. We, you know, threw grenades. We never did that in basic training. We camped out at night. We did learn how to read maps, compasses, and learn night patrols. We had a lot of our trainers in, they call it Tigerland, in Fort Polk, Louisiana, were former Vietnam. They were in Vietnam, so they'd give you first-hand accounts of things like that. So, you know, the training was pretty good.
Very cool. So then after that, is that when you were sent to Vietnam after that training?
Yeah, after a 9-week infantry training, I got a 2-week leave of absence to come home. And then on April 9th of 1970, I had to report to Vietnam. So I went through Fort Lewis, Washington to go to Vietnam.
Okay. And how are you feeling leading up to going to Vietnam? Were you nervous?
I was nervous. I was scared. I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, you know, all the emotions other than, you know, I'm not going. I never did think that. But it was like, okay, you know.
And do you think your training prepared you well for Vietnam, or was it a different ball game once you got there?
It was a different ball game. It trained me well from the standpoint of being able to handle a weapon. But as far as tactics and how to make a good meal out of sea rations and things like that to survive, I learned it from everybody that was over there. So so the training was okay, but it wasn't real life experience.
Okay. And then, so I guess now we can describe what Vietnam was like and everything with that. So
I got into Vietnam. I was in Cam Ranh Bay, and I was at the replacement depot, and then saw that I was going to Alpha Company 1st to the 35th. And somebody heard me saw I was going on that list, and they said, "Oh, you're going to Ambush Alpha." And I was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" You know, it's like, why is somebody calling it Ambush Alpha? And the guy says, "Well, that unit got hit a lot." So I was scared going up to Pleiku to get assigned to my unit right away. turned out the guys I was assigned to were solid and took me under their wing and saying, you may be the new guy, but we'll take care of you. Just do what we say. So I was very comfortable in that environment. Vietnam, hot, steamy in the Central Highlands. Humping was just tough because you had to go up. There was a lot of vegetation, not rice paddies, but just hills and thick canopies, and so it was a tough environment to live in because you lived outside, you slept outside, you ate outside, you bathed outside, you walk for days, utter boredom, and then for 2 or 3 hours it's utter madness and utter fear, and then you do it again, and, so it was crazy. I was fortunate that even though I saw some action in Vietnam, it wasn't sustained, that and I made it home.
So what did you, I guess, do like in your free time in Vietnam when you weren't in battle? Or
I was in an air mobile infantry unit, so we would, if somebody was in trouble, sometimes they would fly us there in helicopters. But after we, went through a battle or a firefight, it was, you just humped and walked. It seemed like you just got, you put on your rucksack, you got your 60, 70 pounds on your back, and you start walking again. Nobody ever told us that much. It was that we're just going there, and it was a point on a grid map on where we were going. Nobody told us why we were going there. Said we're just going from point A to point B. Sometimes we knew what we were going to be doing, pulling a med camp and bringing medics to treat people in a village. But being a PFC or a Spec 4, and just do what I was told.
Yeah.
You're going on an ambush tonight. Okay. You're on a listening post tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Just do what you were told. Did your job. Protect your buddies, come home alive. That's what the name of, that's what we did.
Okay.
But I would, and to put things in proper perspective, I was in the field. I was in Vietnam for 13 months.
Okay.
And I extended 150 days. Excuse me. I extended for 38 days to get out of the Army 5 months early, because if you had 5 months or less to put in the service when you left Vietnam, you got an early out. So I extended for 38 days. So instead of coming out on April 9th, I came out May 17th of 1970. And the reason I did that, I hurt my leg. I was walking across a river where we were humping, and there was an old booby trap, and I got it caught in the leg. It wasn't bad enough to medevac me or anything else.
Yeah.
But over the course of a couple of days, it got infected, so they sent me back to a brigade-sized fire base to get it cleaned up and watch it. While I was there, the company commander from the headquarters company was from Vermilion, Ohio, which is very close to Sandusky, and asked me if I could work the helicopter pads, and yeah, I could do that. So I didn't, for a 4-month period, that's all I did. I didn't go back out to the field.
Oh wow!
So I lived on a fire base, and I flew choppers. I loaded choppers, called in resupply, and kicked the ammo and whatever off the choppers. But for a 3.5, 4-month period, I was lucky out of that 13 months. So
that's very good.
So and at night, I slept under a bunk, and if we got artillery incoming, I jumped in a bunker. So I was fortunate.
And then, so I guess, like, what was your favorite memory from there? If there was anything fun that you guys got to do?
My favorite memory. The favorite memory, and I don't remember a lot of their names. I remember something. Was the camaraderie, the sheer watching out for somebody all the time. I mean, whether you're staying awake on guard duty or something like that. This is on hindsight, looking back on it. you just did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the group I was with, we did the right thing. We didn't, when we came up with civilians, we gave them candy. You know, we didn't throw a can of sea rashes at them. Okay,
Yeah.
we just all, maybe it was a group of people, and maybe it was our company commander, but we did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we read about My Lai, you know, with the massacres and everything else. You know, it's wrong is wrong. Okay, we the group that I was with, we didn't do those. We just didn't do those things. It's like, you know, we went into a village once, and this old man ran from us, and somebody told me to shoot him, and I said, he's just running. I mean, he's an old man. It was like, and we didn't, you know, and we didn't do it and everything else. You know, I look back, I'm saying, I could have got away with it. Okay, but I'm glad we didn't. I was lucky we didn't do those things. You read about a lot of atrocities in Vietnam. I didn't see any from any of the guys.
That's good.
Any, zero, nothing. Did I see people get pissed off at some things? Yeah, but you know, just hurt people for the sake of hurting people. I did not see that.
That's very good to hear. Just because you hear so much.
Yeah, because you're always going to hear about the bad things, but there's good. That's, you know, so.
So I heard you mention that you did come in contact with civilians, just like giving them candy. Did you get to experience anything else with the people living?
Yeah, when we were in the Central Highlands, there was a group of indigenous people called the Manuguerras, and they were a little darker skinned than the normal Vietnamese people. They were mountain tribesmen, and they were, you know, it's a little bit of like the black and white confrontation that was in the States in the 50s or whatever. It wasn't very good scene, but these people they just wanted to fight to maintain their way of life, and they were good. They were, you know, the women, you know, walked around topless. The men wore these big sarongs. They were. We would go in their villages and bring in medics, treat their, you know, diseases or cuts and bruises and things like that. So, and tried to learn their language because it was different than Vietnamese, learning how to count sometimes. So, you know, you can't build a relationship in a day or two, but it was, I don't know, I was 19, 20 years old. I didn't want to be seen as the ugly American.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and we had all the power, you know, because we had the guns. You know, they were always loaded and everything else. But, you know, I may have been lucky. I was with a good bunch of guys.
Yeah, it sounds
Share food. They tried to share their food with us. And I found out, I thought it was dog. So I said, what am I eating? And the guy went, woof, woof. And I didn't know if that meant dog or wolf it down. So to this day, I wasn't sure. I just ate it.
Yeah.
Because it was kind to do that.
And you probably don't want to know.
I don't want to know.
Were you able to keep in contact with your family and friends at home while you were there, or was it more difficult?
It was all letter writing.
Okay.
You know, and you get letters, you know, through mail call and maybe resupply a couple days a week. So it was all letters. It was all manual. They had a way of calling, and that was really through a shortwave radio system called Mars. But you had to line up, and you had to be at a base camp to be able to do that. So, yeah, so your communication with your family and friends was either via, you know, mail.
Yeah.
You could write free on it, have a free postage. Or once in a while, the cassette recorders a family would send a cassette tape and, you know, let you know what was going on at home and everything else.
That's cool.
You know, and most of us had recorders too, back then, tape recorders, and you could send, you know, stuff back.
Yeah.
And, you know, pictures too, film to get processed at home, and so.
Very cool.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah. And then, so going like along with that, what was the most like challenging part? Was it still being away from your family, or just the type of atmosphere in Vietnam?
The challenging part was being the utter fear. I mean, you're afraid. And when you're out in the jungle, I don't care what anybody says, you're 100% afraid.
Yeah.
Either afraid of getting shot at or afraid of the creepy crawlers. I mean, whether it's a scorpion or a snake or something that could bite.
Yeah.
It was, you're always, your head's on a swivel. You're always aware. If you're taking we get to a river and you want to clean our clothes, we have to pick out, okay, half the guys are going to go on the river and they're going to take a bath. The other half are going to pull security around you. You know, so, you know, if you're naked in the water, you can't shoot much, but you got to have your buddies around you. So it was the utter fear all the time. And then when you finally got into a firefight or anything else, you didn't have time to be afraid.
Yeah.
You just reacted, okay? And then afterwards, you'd be like, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah.
So it was crazy emotions. Crazy emotions, you know, just highs are real highs and lows are like.
So I guess what was then, we talked about your favorite part earlier, I guess what was your least favorite part or like the lowest part of Vietnam?
Seeing people hurt, seeing people killed. I guess it really bothers me now, you know, looking at the waste of why we were there and everything else, you know, it's an older person, you know, not rewriting history, but saying, you know, would I do the same thing, you know? Yeah, just the waste, you know, and I didn't see that many people killed, but I saw enough, you know, and I'm talking about a half a dozen, and it's, you know, and you know, I saw in my unit, and if you go to the 35th Infantry Regiment website, okay, and they've got the wall there, that we've got a wall of all the guys that were killed by date, by unit. The organization I'm part of I'm proud of it. They did this, and they also document each grave. But we've had, you know, like Lieutenant Gentine, the person I told you about, was killed by, you know, a recoilless rifle being shot in the perimeter. And he got fragmentation wounds which killed him. To a guy, you know, a month later or so, that was, I want to say he was murdered, but it was a justifiable homicide. He went outside, it was a new guy, went outside the perimeter to take a leak at night, didn't tell anybody, okay? And came walking back, making a lot of noise, and somebody said, halt, the guy didn't halt, and he got shot. You know, so, I mean, and that was a stupid mistake that was totally preventable, you know. And then, in November 1969, you know, they were loading mortar rounds into a parapet, and it fell out, and an accident because it was a faulty round and blew up and, you know, killed 2 or 3 guys. And, you know, it's just, you know, you just react back then, but you're looking back and saying, you know, it's like this book, you know, all they left behind. Like, you know, and then why did I make it? You know, it's you know, so it's I guess it's tougher now than it was then for me.
Understandable, and I think a lot of people.
Because I made it. I got a family. They did it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people who've come and, especially from Vietnam, have said. It's a lot harder now, and everything. So, I guess we can switch to kind of a more happier time, like coming home and.
I wasn't happy. I mean, I was happy to come home. But I don't want to say I didn't get treated like shit.
Yeah.
I got treated like nothing. Like it was no big deal. Like, what are you complaining about? It was like, you know, I see a car, you know, and I probably had PTSD worse than what, you know, that I didn't want to let it be known and everything else. But I mean, a car would backfire and I ducked and a lot of noises. I didn't want to be in crowds and things like that. But you know, my circle of friends, you know, they were all they made it through college, and they were kind to me, but nobody, you know, they didn't understand.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, it's great now where you see military people and you say thanks for your service and everything else. I went to the met some guys at the VFW when I got out, and it was like, you were in a real war. You know, you were in a police section and everything. I was like, you know, I don't need this crap. So yeah, I was happy to be home,
but
free at last, you know, and everything else of the regiment area of, you know. But now I have to, you know, what am I going to be when I grow up? I was 20 years old when I came back from Vietnam, and I couldn't drink. I started to drink in Ohio, 3-2 beer. So I came home in, you know, May of '70, and I didn't turn 21 until, you know, December. So it's kind of frustrating at times to say, you know, put my butt on the line, and, you know, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know.
So when you came home, did you go back to school, or did you
eventually go? Well, when I came back, they had to give me the job that I had when I left Vietnam, which was at a plastics factory in Sandusky. I worked that shift because it was a midnight shift. I worked that shift. Maybe I made it 4 hours, like 11 to 3 in the morning, and said, you know, I'm not going to do this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I ended up, you know, just doing part-time jobs and, you know, going back to college in the Bowling Green branch campus in Sandusky. And ended up meeting my wife at Cedar Point.
Very cool.
Up, you know, I had the GI Bill, ended up at Defiance College with her because she was on scholarship there. So, you know, so I just transferred there.
Nice.
So,
and then when did you guys get married?
In 1972, 2 years after Vietnam. So it all worked out.
Yes, it sounds like it.
And one daughter, and now I got 3 grandkids. So
that's awesome.
It's awesome.
So it worked out well.
Yes, it did.
And then, have you been able to remain in contact with anyone from the service, or is that just kind of a part of your life that you...
No, it's a very important part of my life. In 1999, so I left Vietnam in 1970, and really didn't contact anybody from 1979. It's 20 years.
Okay.
They found people through the internet. They found people's orders and everything else, and other people had orders with names on them and social security numbers back then.
Yeah.
So they found me through this database of information with the Department of Defense. And we had a reunion in 1999 for the 30 people that served in that unit. And I was one of them. There were 70 or 80 of us. No, I think I just saw a static. Maybe it was a little less than 100 people were there.
Yeah. And
now the union's 400. It's the 18th year, and I've gone to 7 or 8 of them. But that was the first time in 20 years that I was with other people that experienced the same thing I did, and the same. Hey, we're not all crazy, you know. Hey, there's a judge. There's a guy that's a superintendent of a school district. Because, you know, the press still kept playing up that, you know, if you were in Vietnam, you're either homeless, wacko, okay, or some dysfunction. You know, we all knew we were dysfunctional, but some of us succeeded in spite of that dysfunction.
Yeah.
In fact, more people succeeded, whether they were, you know, train engineers. I mean, you got on with your life, okay, and you had nobody to complain to. It's like Vietnam. You're gonna say, I'm gonna go home. I don't like it. You get 12,000 miles from home and you're in a jungle. You just did it, okay, and you just, you know, you kind of sucked it up, and you know, you didn't feel. There was hurt, but you just said, you know, I got a family, I got a kid, I gotta go to work, and I gotta do this and this and this. And if, you know, my employer doesn't need to know I'm in Vietnam unless, because I think it was in probably the late 70s when, you know, with affirmative action, that there were some points associated with, you know, hiring vets, you know, and everything else. And are you a veteran? And it was like, you know, do I answer yes or no?
Yeah.
You know? What does this mean? So, but yeah, it's just, so I didn't talk to anybody about it when I was home, but then, you know, 20 years later, I started to meet these people that were, okay, and then through the internet is expanded that. You can let people in or out as much as you want. And that 35th Infantry Division website is, you know, we've had families reach out to people and said, my dad was killed in Vietnam. I was only 2 years old, okay? tell me something about him. And they find guys that was with their dad.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lady, this was 6 or 7 years ago, reached out because her son was killed in a mortar accident. And that's all the Army told her, he was killed in a mortar accident. They wanted to know more about what happened that day and everything else. Was there anybody else? And I thought long and hard about, she was like 88 years old, and her niece or something. I talked to her before I talked to this lady. It was like, what do you want me to say to her? How much do you want? Just talk to her. And I did. And I sent her, it wasn't much, but it's that connection.
Yeah.
I left behind, and there's a lot of hurt still out there after all these friggin' years. And it pisses me off. But
yeah, understandable. But that's awesome that you're helping people at least get some answers that they didn't have.
The whole system is set up like that now, and I've viewed the group of guys that I was with are just special.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they went through hell, some of them. They're special people.
Mm-hmm.
They'd lay down their lives for you right now in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
That's who they are.
That's awesome. Well, so I guess we can go to the reflection part. How did this whole experience that you went through affect the rest of your life and who you kind of are today? Did it have a big influence on it?
It had a huge influence, and that's what pisses me off. I mean, I'm gonna be 68 in December. It was really 1/68 of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And it affects me every friggin' day.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I think about Vietnam at some point in time, every day of my life, and it was only 1/68. So it's, whether it's a noise or a thought or,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my grandson and saying, somebody didn't have a grandson.
Yeah.
So, to the reflection, and the good part about all this stuff, it ain't that way now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They're getting their due. And that is a thumbs up in my book.
Yeah.
So I guess there's good comes out of some crazy stuff.
Exactly.
It always does.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then, is there anything that you would like to leave for future generations who will watch this video? So any messages or words of wisdom that you want to leave behind?
Be smart, don't listen to politicians, find out. I mean, it's like the politicians will have you fight a war that doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, make sure it's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we covered a lot, and we appreciate everything you said. No, you're good. So if there's anything else you would like to add, you can do so, but
I'm
if
good.
not, all right. Thank you again.
Thank you.